Hello and welcome back to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. My name is Farhan, also known as Gunner since '96, and as always joining me here this evening is Adam Keys. Adam, are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, question number one. Was it a penalty?
On Havertz or Højlund?
Havertz one, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is it time to drop Havertz?
Yes.
And did Arsenal deserve... Oh no, that's last week's question. I haven't removed that one. Is 10 out of 12 points the start we should be happy with?
No, we should have beat Fulham.
Okay. Good start. So I was expecting a few different answers. One in particular. So we'll delve into it, and of course we will dissect it in more detail. But Adam, tell me, how are you feeling after the game? How are you doing in general?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good after that. I think we deserved it in the end. There was things I loved about the performance, things I didn't like, but all in all, I think more relief and kind of that buzzing emotion. So yeah, I'm very happy tonight. How are you?
Good. I am good as well. It was like you said, it was a roller coaster of emotions. I was house sitting or co-house sitting with my wife at her parents, who they've gone over to Turkey for a short break. Lucky fuckers. And so we were left house sitting for a few days. And yeah, so I was left kind of watching it by myself, and she would come into the room every so often to see what the hell was happening because I'd be screaming my head off. So, yeah, roller coaster of emotions. But at the end of the day, we got the result that we were looking for, and actually the result that we deserved. So, I don't know whether we should delve right into the starting lineup or just
I think it's worth a discussion
chit-chat.
because we've always. I think we got what we wanted from the starting 11 today, for the most part, which was what we talked about last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Back four, back where they belong, and actually quite a fascinating. Before we talk about starting 11, or we could talk in parallel to the press conference that Arteta had during the midweek. Very vocal about the different formations. Very vocal about the criticism that he was getting for, not playing players in their preferred positions. What's your take on kind of his response and how he handled it? How do you feel like he came across?
I loved it. I thought it was his best press conference yet. When he was talking about getting to work, I was like, absolutely brilliant. These get better every week. And I put a tweet out about that. So I got what he meant. And it is this: if we want to continue to evolve and continue to grow and continue to find ways to beat teams, you do have to try things. And the reality is, we should have come away from those 3 games with 9 points. Yes, I think the first Fulham goal last week was a result of system tinkering, but we had enough to win the game, and it was players switching off in the box that cost us the game ultimately. But had we have come away with 9 points and experimented with that system, we would all be calling him a genius, because we'd be saying he's done the experimentation and we've still got 9 points. Yes, we haven't fully clicked, but we've got 9 points. And that's... So I liked his response. I thought it was good. And I think what I liked even more was it wound up everyone that wasn't an Arsenal fan. And it wound up the Arsenal crowd on Twitter that hate Arteta. So, yeah, I really liked his response about the M25 and so on.
I think one of the commentators made a reference to that, which is, it's nice to see Arteta coming out of his shell a little bit more. Don't you think this season he seems to be adapting to that manager role? He seems to be a little bit more... If he looks more comfortable as a manager as opposed to last season. Last season he was, I guess, more of a friendly face. Always, I guess, trying to... win brownie points, whether it be with the pundits, whether it be with the reporters.
Now,
Really? So I always got the impression that Arteta was always the nice guy in front of the media. But this time round, there's a bite to him.
No, Arteta's always had a bite. Even that first press conference, the non-negotiables, he came in and you're thinking, this is my kind of bell end. It's like exactly what you want. He's like, from the beginning, I was like, if he wasn't Arsenal manager, I would hate him. And that's what I wanted from an Arsenal manager. Same way, it's like Gabriel Jesus, if he doesn't play for your team, you hate him. Hated him at City. Comes to Arsenal, love him. And it's like Gary Neville, I always use as the example. If you have a Gary Neville in your team, you'll love him, you'll adore him. It was the same with like Gerrard, Carragher, John Terry, those kind of players. And I kind of see Arteta having that bite to him as a manager. And I think there was a stage where Pep was a bit like that. He was feisty, he was incredibly arrogant, and I think because of his success he's kind of tipped over that we just all respect him now. But I like that Arteta's got that fire to him, and I've just never seen him being the nice guy, or like even 2 years ago we was scrapping with Klopp on the touchline. So yeah, I think he looks in his element this year, and he looks pretty happy with the squad and the players that he's got. Obviously we would have liked one more, but I think Arteta looks very confident right now.
Yeah, well, look, this is the first time we're talking since the conclusion of the transfer window. We were all hoping for one more signing. Instead, we received the horrible news of a Thomas Partey injury, so that worked out well. And so I guess it made the starting lineup that much more interesting. Tell me, what were you expecting? And when we eventually got the starting lineup, what was the overall feeling?
Yeah, I think yesterday it came out, it was like a few Twitter accounts. Clearly there are leaks there. Someone's got a source. Don't know who broke the story. Then the Black Cats put out the message that he hadn't been selected and that he had an injury. So then Gunnar Blog confirmed that he heard that there was an injury. And then Charles Watts today said that it was a training ground injury, and Arsenal were furious with Ghana because they've been trying to keep it quiet, and that's why they put pictures out yesterday of Partey training to try and create a ruse. So it's obviously heartbreaking to lose him, and hopefully it is only a couple of weeks. He'll be back after the international break, but there are rumours of 3 months, so let's wait and see. There's been no confirmation yet, so I will...
Well, Arteta in the pre-match, I guess, interview said it would be a couple of weeks. So do we take his word for it?
Hopefully it's a couple of weeks in that case. So, yeah, a couple of weeks is not too bad given that we've got an international break. But in terms of the lineup, once we knew Partey was out, I think we got exactly what I would have wanted. So if Partey was fit, I would have gone with him and Rice in midfield and pushed Rice further up. Without him, I would have gone with Havertz, as Arteta did. I think Vieira was great last week, but I keep saying this, when you're coming on to change a game, it's very different to coming on to control a game and play your way into it, grow into it, and the duels and so on that happen as a starter, as a team trying to assert their dominance, are very different to when a team are playing a low block and you're really going at them and there's that intensity to win the game. So I like the team Arteta put out. I'm guessing you were very disappointed to see our friend Kai Havertz in the lineup.
No, not necessarily. I think the main surprise for me was not seeing Jesus starting. Since he's back in training, since he's fully fit, I really didn't expect to see him be put straight back into the starting lineup. But I guess in classic Arteta fashion, you have to earn your right to be number one. And Eddie's been performing really, really well. Even this afternoon against United, he put in a very, very good performance. One of his best this season, I think. So it's going to be really difficult for someone like Jesus to just step back in. But I guess this is what we want at Arsenal, don't we? We want a level of competition. We want players to be fighting for places to challenge each other so that they can get the best out of themselves. But aside from Nketiah, very much, I think it picked itself. Really good to see Zinchenko back. And I guess it was a case of whether... we'd see Tommy back in or Zinchenko. Arteta opted to go for Zinchenko. Very, very encouraging that we've seen the back four for the first time. And if we, if we dissect and analyse the overall football that we played, compare it to the first 3 games, I think it was a little bit more fluid. I think there was more control. Certainly, build-up looked a little bit more pleasing on the eye. So that was nice to have that back 4 back. And actually, it doesn't really matter what formation we kind of try to predict or we try to paint a picture of. It's always different. It's always different during game time because Zinchenko was never playing left back. For large parts of the game, he was playing very much.
He's
pretty much all over the place,
midfielder.
but a central midfielder, exactly. And actually, for the most part, in possession, we were playing with 3 at the back. So, and actually, even against Fulham, there were moments, large moments in the game where it was just 3 at the back. Partey would kind of drift in to the middle of the pitch and play alongside Rice. So, but yeah, on paper, most importantly, it was good. It was encouraging, and it was nice that we were playing a United side who were so fragmented, and they were missing a number of key individuals, but also just generally speaking, when you look at them on paper, Anthony Martial up front never really poses a threat. Rashford playing out on the wing. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because he's never really delivered the promises that the fans made of him. He's never lived up to the hype.
So yeah, for me, he's a nothing player. He's someone that I think they would have liked to get rid of during the window. Bit like Maguire, and United have kind of had a similar window to us in the sense that they've struggled to get rid of the players that they wanted to get rid of. I think Martial takes that box. It seems today that Jadon Sancho takes that box because Ten Hag's gone to war with him, and Sancho has released a statement saying, "Don't believe what you hear." So I really love it when United are infighting. So it's just great to see. And of course, it wasn't anything to do with the players on the pitch. It was all the Glazers' fault today. So, I mean, the Glazers picked the team, went out and played, and it was the Glazers that were just outperformed on the pitch, as Gary Neville pointed out after the game. So nothing to do with Arsenal, nothing to do with the United players, Ten Hag.
It's
all
crazy,
on the Glazers,
isn't it? Like,
all on them. 200 million
unbelievable, honestly.
It's the Glazers.
What really shocked me was Ten Hag's post-match interview on Sky, and I was we were messaging on WhatsApp, and I was just kind of pointing it out to you. I couldn't believe some of the things that he was saying. I mean, first things first, they should have had a penalty, apparently. The offside wasn't offside, even though the lines were drawn. It wasn't offside. From a different angle, he was actually onside. He went on to make some other really ridiculous, poor claims. And, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the game and we're going to kind of delve into it in more detail. But if he's claiming that they should have had a penalty, then ours was all day long a penalty. And I mean, did you hear what Mike Dean had to say about it?
I did watch it. I can't remember exactly. But I know he said Havertz was a bit soft on second view, and he said on the pitch he would have given it. He said first view, and then the United one, I can't remember. I know he said it wasn't a pen. He basically
so what he said on
said.
Yeah, but what he said on our penalty claim, who was it? Havertz, right? Apparently, according to him, I don't know what match he was watching or whether he was wearing I don't know those things. Those sleeping
blinders.
Things that you wear over the eyes. Blinders. I don't know if he was wearing blinders, but according to him, Wan-Bissaka never attempted to make the tackle. And I don't know how much clearer a player needs to make when he lunges his leg forward. That's a clear indication that he wants to make a challenge. So, I was quite surprised that no one actually challenged him on that. But anyways, let's put that aside and let's talk about the game itself, okay? Because it was a game of two halves and a game. I truly believe that Arsenal dominated that game, especially in the first half. And I don't think United were anywhere near the standards to be competing against us. Had it not been for the lack of, taking our chances and maybe not being able to deal with situations as well as we're able to, they wouldn't have had a single goal, or they probably wouldn't have had half the chances that they did. A game of two halves, really. The first opening 10 minutes, kind of give me your what's the word I'm looking for?
Thoughts.
Your thoughts?
Yeah,
on the opening 10 minutes.
I had a weird start to the game, so it was like we were coming back from a friend's house, and it was. I thought we'd be back in time for the game, and it was getting to like 25 past, so I realised we were still a good 15 minutes from home, so I just pulled onto the hard shoulder, told my wife to drive, got in the passenger seat, and started streaming the game on the motorway. So, but yeah, so it was an interesting way to start the game, and then straight in, got on TV and that. But for me, it was one of those, I thought we started well, we didn't go kind of hell for leather, we were easing our way into it, and all in all, I thought we started the game quite well. But it was 50-50, and I thought we came into it a bit better in the next 10 minutes, so it was are you alright?
You know when you drink water and it goes down the wrong pipe? It's just, I'm trying really hard to keep myself quiet. Sorry, you carry on.
But yeah, opening 10, I thought we were good. I mean, there wasn't anything spectacular there that we're like, that was incredible. Real moments to write home about. Next 10, I thought we grew into it a bit more. And I felt we were just growing more and more into the game until that goal came. And it was so against the run of play. United did have more of the ball than us in the first half. So they had 55% of the possession. However, they only had one shot and they scored from it. So one shot on target, I think they had 3 in total. So it was one of those games where we were definitely the better team for long, long periods. And I think kind of from maybe 15 minutes onwards, we really started to assert our dominance on the first half. And then the goal changed a lot. And but yeah, what were your early thoughts?
Well, I think that Arsenal started off the game. I mean, I predicted and I hoped that we would start quite strong and with clear intent on scoring. And I think that's what happened, especially in the opening minute with Martinelli, finding the ball over the top, making a lovely run into the box. There was no one there, but those were the indications that showed us, we were going to be front-footed as opposed to sitting off, maybe figuring each other out. Really good possession being held by Arsenal, moving the ball in between the lines as well, and someone who did that excellently was Declan Rice. Anytime he picked up the ball, his first initial thought was to move it forward. It wasn't to stutter, it wasn't to see who's behind him or who's playing alongside him. It was immediately playing it forward between the lines, so that was very, very encouraging. United, on the other hand, looked really shaky at the back, struggling to play the ball out of the back. And this is one of the games where I wouldn't necessarily look at stats and I wouldn't look at numbers, because although they had a line share of possession in the first half, a lot of that was being played in their first half. I think Sky showed a touch map of the touches that they made, and almost 90% of their touches were in their own half. And had Arsenal been a little bit more intense in the pressing, I understand why we weren't, because when you've got someone like Onana in goal and the position that he was playing in and the what's the word I'm looking for? The progression? No, that's not the right word.
Yeah, he was playing it was very much a first phase build up from him.
Advanced.
So, but yeah,
that's the right word I'm looking for. Advanced.
Outside his box. So
yeah, he's super advanced, so way past his box, and yeah, it worked for them because they were able to, see more of the ball. But when push came to shove, and eventually when we did put the burners on them, it was very route one, and that was good to see because it showed me that we were playing against a side who were more afraid to play competitively. And would rather, try not necessarily the easy route, but when you're confident and when a team is playing good. Basically, when a team is good, they play football on the grass, right? They don't need to necessarily lump it up the field. So, yeah, first opening 10 minutes, very controlled stuff. Worth noting as well.
Kind of just on that point, Nana had 56 touches of the ball, played 51 passes. By contrast, Ramsdale had 28 touches and played 21 passes. So that very much feeds into your point about the sheer, kind of volume of possession within their own box, or the edge of it. That is a fairly crazy stat for a goalkeeper to have that many touches and that many passes. And he's a lovely ball player. Really, really nice ball player to watch. And one of those, if they do that all season, I think from what I saw today, that they're not a good side. We've said that all along. Not a good side, but I think you're right in that, yes, they had a lot of possession, but a lot of it was dead possession. I think we were happy to let them have it, sit back, and we weren't pressing them. I think what we saw as well was a bit of the evolution of pressing. So more and more teams are putting their foot on the ball and inviting the press. And I think teams are starting to do it a bit less and try and get teams to come out at them. And when you've got Man United, the way they're playing, like Burnley. But when you've got a team like that are so negative and so transitional, they want to play through the press and they want to hit you on the counter. So it's very much that. And I think Arsenal did a good job at letting them just play it amongst that back five today and not go anywhere. Hoof it long, bypass their midfield. I don't know about you, but Casemiro, who knows what he's been doing today because he hasn't been at the Emirates.
Yeah. I mean, until you mentioned it to me, I didn't actually notice that he was... Actually, it was very, very late on in the game where he played like a long... Either a long diagonal ball or a long ball up the pitch, which posed a bit of a threat for us. But yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the evolution of pressing, because unlike last season, or the last few seasons, both City and Arsenal have adopted the idea of pressing really high up the pitch. And almost without thinking, Whereas this season, I've noticed that Arsenal are very more meticulous. They're a bit more calculated. It's a bit more of a measured approach, as opposed to the moment the opposition get the ball or the moment that we lose the ball, we need to go for it and we need to win it back as quickly as possible. At one time, that was the norm. That was a coaching norm, wasn't it? When you lose the ball, you win it back as quickly as possible. Now it's more making sure that we're not leaving gaps. We're structured well enough, and also the opposition. Everyone's adapted this playing out from the back method. We need to make sure that we're not feeding into their approach, because Arsenal did this last season where we would want to invite players in so that we can play around them. It's easier for us to beat that midfield. So yeah, good to see that Ødegaard for one was constant, but it's okay for one player to be applying constant pressure. You don't want two or three, and so. In contrast to the defensive side of the game, going forward, we have to talk about Bukayo Saka, because he won the PFA Young Player of the Year award, and unfortunately wasn't able to match up with the performance. I have my I guess explanations for why that was, but why do you think he was unable to shine?
I think Dalot had a good game defensively against him. United doubled up on him a lot, as we expected. It's a funny one with Saka, because I don't think he had a bad game. I think he didn't have a good Saka game. And I think that's the standards we talk about with him now. He is usually an 8 or 9 out of 10, and today he was probably a 7. And if another winger had that... Do you know something? I thought Anthony had a really good game today. Bukayo Saka did everything and more that Anthony did. But that's the standards that the two of them are held to. So a 6 out of 10 for Saka is a 9 out of 10 for Anthony. And a 10 out of 10 for Saka is probably off the scale for Anthony. I will never say it. But I felt we weren't getting a lot of joy down that side. It was very congested. I thought he was good on the ball, but there were some loose touches, and there were times as well where Ødegaard frustrated with how quickly he released the ball and was a bit greedy unusually. And a couple of times where I felt he could have played Saka in, but one of the weird game because I didn't think he was bad. I just didn't think he had a good game by his standards, and I think that's a crazy thing because 2 years ago we would have been saying about how good Saka was, and actually I think it's just how good he's become, how much he carries the team. But in many ways, that's not a bad thing. We've come away with a 3-1 win, and we're not talking about Saka being incredible because, again, last season, for large periods, it would have been Saka that we needed to perform, and if he didn't, we wouldn't have won. So actually, Ødegaard stepped up when we needed him to. Rice was phenomenal, and those things are showing how we're progressing and growing as a team. But yeah, what were your thoughts around Saka?
Well, I just wanted to say that it was worth noting in the opening 10 minutes, Saka was barely seeing the ball. And I think the reason why was because anytime he was seen on the side, either receiving the ball or in and amongst the play, he was often marked out by two men. So Dalot was there. Rashford would often run back as well. It wasn't until later in the game where Anthony realised he needed to track back in order to deal with Martinelli. But Martinelli had so much freedom today. And I think that's another element to our to our play. When this is what Arteta is trying to do very much this season. It's playing the unpredictability game. It's trying to make us come out with as many angles as possible. So last season, you would very much expect Saka to receive the ball wide overload, and for that to be kind of the main channel that we go down. Now it's one game, maybe we'll go down that right hand side, but we might also go down the left hand side because we're more than capable of doing that. One game, maybe we play White at right back, but we might play him at centre back. So it is very much, I feel like this season anyway, in order to maximise the 3 points in every game, it's about making sure we're one step ahead of the opposition, because it's very much how the old saying goes: failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Yeah. And throughout the week, throughout the 7 days, the opposition side is going to be working on. They're going to be analysing clip after clip, video after video, game after game, to try and figure out what you're going to do to position themselves as strongly as possible to beat you. And so if Arteta has, 5-10 different plays in his game plan, it makes it almost impossible for the opposition to figure us out. So that's why I thought Saka necessarily didn't need to be the centre. He didn't need to be. He didn't need to, be the man of the game. Or, I don't know what saying I'm trying to say. But yeah, and Jesus didn't need to be on the pitch. Partey didn't need to be on the pitch. You think back to last season, how many games when we didn't have one player from that starting 11, and then we would, as a fan base, we would crumble. It would be really worrying times for us. Right? Yeah. Now we've had so many different variations already, but still, was it 10 out of 12 points in the first opening 4 games? Not bad, considering. So yeah, but we will unfortunately have to talk about your best mate, Kai Havertz, because there was a moment in the game
wait to text
where
me whenever that pass. It was like I was waiting for it. It was I knew it was coming, and it was. Yeah. I mean, even I couldn't defend him with that.
Do you know what happened? Right. So the moment that pass was made, everything you had said about him, all the pros, all the benefits, they're all kind of echoing through my brain. And it was just unforgivable. But before that, he did have a really, really good opportunity to put us 1-0
and that
up.
one again. I something I keep hearing people say about Havertz's ball striking ability. That to me is something that I don't quite see in Havertz yet. I think he's got the potential to be a good ball striker, and obviously you get the comparisons to RVP. I watched RVP from he joined Arsenal, and from the day he joined the club, when he struck a ball, you knew it. He was such a clean striker of the ball. I've just never seen that in Havertz. And when that chance fell to him, I don't know how he missed that. He scuffed it so badly that it actually kind of floats to Nketiah. And it was just bizarre. And it was in such a good area.
Do you think he was trying too hard to strike it?
I don't know. I mean, you have to remember this is a professional footballer that's playing at the absolute elite level. So saying he's trying too hard to strike it, I don't know. I think it's inexcusable. We can try and find a reason for it all day long, but at the end of the day, he's completely missed the ball. It's like one of the worst scuffs you'll see.
Yeah, because it's so unfortunate that it didn't result into a goal, because at the beginning of that play, it was Rice that starts to move with a sumptuous challenge to win the ball and to play it forward. And actually, in the opening half an hour, Rice made, I think, 3 or 4 excellent challenges in the game, like some really aggressive, but also there was a lot of conviction in the challenges that he was making. Central in, again, winning the ball, moving it forward, the intensity as well, really, really excellent. I felt like he set the tempo of the game. And yeah, it was a little concerning for me. We got to about, the minute 23rd minute, and we hadn't scored. And it was, I made a note of this. We were risking giving them a moment in the game to build momentum to get back in the game. Or just one little scenario was enough for them to, make something happen. And you could feel it in the stadium as well. Well, we weren't in the stadium, but you could feel it through the television. The pressure was mounting, and
massively.
The fans were beginning to get frustrated. The ref talking to Onana about time wasting, Anthony kicking the ball away. All these little things were really making the fans kind of rile up. And then, when you felt like Arsenal were going to score at any given moment, the worst thing happened, and Rashford scored. So you talk to me about the goal. Try and break it down for me. Try and make me make sense of it, because for a team who was possessing as much as we were, how does that happen?
Well, I think we had really pressed them into that corner, and we had won the ball back, and then it's such a lazy pass from Havertz. I think that's the bit that really frustrated me. It was just kind of flung a leg at it when he didn't need to. He could have taken a touch. He could have brought people into the game, and he could have done so many things other than what he did. Instead, he's played a kind of straight ball without any pace on it, in the air as well, where it's more it's very likely to be cut out at a really nice height. And Eriksen comes through, and he carries it far too easily through the middle of the park. And look, Christian Eriksen's a phenomenal passer of the ball. We've known that for years. It's knocking on 14 years that he's been playing these kind of balls, and we know how good he is on the deck. We know what he can do creatively. And the minute Rashford gets going, you just know where he's going. He's such a direct player. I thought Ben White was poor in the way he backed off. I didn't think Saliba was overly strong either, because Saliba kind of drops in behind White. And rather than the two of them facing up to him, it was as if we had one behind the other. And I didn't like the positioning of the two of them together. And there's also an element of luck to it, because it's not the best strike from Rashford, and Ramsdale does get a hand to it. So, but it kind of felt like there was an inevitability to it, in the sense that we were under pushing and pushing and pushing, and you just knew United's only outball here is to get it down to Rashford down that left-hand side. And the minute it happened, it was like, this is what's going to happen. And it did. So I was gutted when it happened. And it was obviously, I got the text from you straight away.
Tell me a little bit more about how you were actually feeling.
Yeah, I was gutted. It was just one of those. I text you, I text my other mate. And it was just gutted that it had happened. And I think more annoyed because it's that same thing we keep talking about, is being far too easy to play through. And City dominate teams. They press them and they press them and they pin them back, and they just keep forcing those low block kind of anti-football teams back. And we were doing that to United, and instead we've just one ball has completely cut us open, and we've conceded a goal that we've seen far too many of over the last 18 months. So it's definitely, if we can improve that, I think we become a top side. The issue is, if you don't improve that in tight games, they can decide it. And so I think I had the fear when it went in more than anything, being like, after dropping points to Fulham, it was like, what? How have we conceded that? We should have been more switched on. We should have we should have had someone in the middle of the park and so on. But obviously Rice has won the challenge and he's high up the park, which leaves that space in the middle. And I'm not sure if it's him trying to recover or Havertz running back, but they're quite a bit off Eriksen and there's a huge space to exploit down there. And I think it was a lesson to be learned, but we responded quickly. And that's what I want to see more than anything. So I think we really caught United off guard with our response.
And what a goal to respond with. I mean, you talk about classic Arsenal goals. You talk about, the way that we move the ball and, Wenger-esque or Arteta style type of goals. This was right up there, wasn't it?
100%. It's one of those by Martinelli, lovely flick. Just like so effortless. And then he obviously keeps running and he does so well because he doesn't break his stride when he plays that pass into Ødegaard. He looks up and he keeps running. It's a very natural movement and he picks him out in amongst a big bunch of players straight into the bottom corner. And it was one of those, as he was rolling it back, I thought he's going to score here. And it was just one of those, it's a real captain's moment when we needed him most. And because he was having a frustrating game, United were getting really, really tight to him. And it was one of those that you kind of need. They're the moments that players like Ødegaard are going to be judged on whenever it comes to the end of the season. It's like the big moments when you need your captain the most. And Ødegaard has had criticism for disappearing in big games, and which I've always felt is harsh because actually a lot of the times where he's been criticised, he still had a lot of the ball. He's just not had any magic moments. And I felt today that was one of those real magic moments that we saw against Chelsea. We saw it against Newcastle. And it was exactly what we needed. And just a beautiful finish. And one of those, like, there's something about a goal from outside the box as well. And there was venom in the strike. There was superb.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed about this goal was Eddie Nketiah's touch. And if we look back at the game, there were moments many moments in the game where he was just so sharp in knowing what he wanted to do before he received the ball. Zinchenko plays the ball to him, and it's that first time pass where he feeds it into Martinelli. Martinelli takes a touch and feeds it back to Ødegaard. But it set the tempo of that goal. It was so well maneuvered. If Eddie doesn't make that pass the way that he makes it, maybe Ødegaard never receives the ball. But because the tempo of that play is set from that pass, it allows that whole scenario to play out the way it does. Very similarly, when we're talking about the penalty situation, again, it's a lovely pass, I think, from Declan Rice into Eddie. Eddie takes a touch, shifts away from the two United players. I think it's Anthony and somebody else. Yeah, sorry. No, it's Anthony and somebody else. I'm talking about the just before Eddie passes it to Havertz. Eddie has to shift himself across the goal, and what he does is really clever. He makes the run across the pitch, allowing Rice to run into the space. So when you pause the video just before Havertz receives the ball, you've got Havertz and Rice, both of them charging into the box. The ball's played inch perfectly as well to Havertz, who needs to take only a touch to put it in front of him. Does it? And I guess it brings us to this point of the podcast where we can discuss whether it was a penalty or not. At the beginning, you said that you felt like it was a penalty. On a scale of it was absolutely a penalty, and on the other side, it would have been a really harsh one had it been given. Where do you kind of sit?
I didn't celebrate whenever it was given because I thought it could be overturned. So that's what my gut said. I thought it was harsh that it was overturned, and I thought there was enough contact to force Havertz down. But I would have been really annoyed if we conceded it. So I think it was a penalty, but marginally a penalty in the way that United got their pen for Rashford last week. There is contact on Rashford last week, but it's minimal and it's enough to take him down. And I think the thing that really annoys me about the slow-mo with football's not played in slow motion. So if you're running full pelt at any level of the game and someone catches you very, very softly, it can completely mess your it knocks your balance, it affects your momentum, everything. And there's two players coming in. So it's not just the one, and he is caught by both players. And yes, his trailing leg catches, I think it's Wan-Bissaka. But for me, I felt it was very harsh that it was overturned. And at the full-time analysis, Gary Neville actually said that he thought it was very harsh that it was overturned. And even during the game, Gary Neville was saying that it would be harsh to overturn it. So he thought it was a soft one, as did I. And I did have that fear it would be overturned. But at the same time, I thought there was enough in it that it should have stayed and should have been given. So yeah, what were your thoughts?
That sound can only mean one thing. We've arrived at the halfway point. Well, actually, we arrived at the halfway point before we started talking about the penalty situation. I thought that happened in the first half. Then I realised, hold on a minute, it actually happened in the second half. So, yeah, I'll answer your question as to what I thought on the whole Havertz penalty, and then we can talk about Eddie Nketiah, because I don't think we've, I don't think we've given him his accolades. I think he deserves a whole section, because I don't know about you, but I've been really critical of Eddie, and I think I've been critical of Eddie in the fatherly kind of sense, where I want him to perform at his best. I want him to be the player who we know he can be. It's kind of never happened the way that we thought it would, but I think we're slowly starting to see the Eddie Nketiah that we've been hoping to see for the last few years. Anyway, the penalty situation. So, to my understanding, if contact is made in the box, a player has the right to go down, regardless of how soft or how hard the contact is. If contact is made, a player has the right to go down. Okay, that is by definition what a penalty situation is. Now, cast your mind back to a few years ago when Jimenez, we were playing Wolves at the Emirates Stadium. Jimenez suffered a terrible head injury, and David Luiz got himself sent off for clipping his stud on the, I don't know who it was at the time who fell over, but it clipped his knee. Okay,
yeah.
Minimal contact. We're talking inches, right? Since that situation has happened, anything goes. Okay, now I don't understand what Mike Dean's explanation of this is. How he seems to think that the first, number one, Wan-Bissaka doesn't go for the challenge when he does. He sticks his leg forward. Number two, there are people that are saying Havertz trips himself up, or his trailing leg makes contact with himself. It doesn't. His trailing leg makes contact with Wan-Bissaka. And as you rightly mentioned, the clip that we're being shown, and the referee at the time, is a slow-mo, is in slow motion. And we know that football isn't played at that pace. So imagine running at, I imagine the pace that he's running at is quite fast. Any bit of contact is bound to put a player off from his 100%. Normal running route. So, yeah, it's really... I can't seem to understand. And do you know what really surprised me is how quickly the decision was made. The moment he went over to the TV screen, he only needed to look at it once or twice. It was so quick. And yeah, I didn't for a second think that he would give it to us anyway. It just seems that whenever we're playing against United, something tends to go against us. But yeah, that penalty decision goes against us. And I'll ask you what your thoughts are, how you kind of felt after that. But before we do that, Eddie Nketiah, discuss. How do you evaluate his performance this game? And is he someone who should be in the starting lineup after the international break?
Big question. I guess first on his performance. thought he was really good. I wanted him to start going into the game. I tweeted about it this morning saying that even if Jesus was fully fit and rearing to go, thought Eddie had earned it. And I think there is something in keeping players in the team when they have earned it. And he's been one of our best players this season. And today I thought he led the line really well. He got snapped by Martinez, and I was buzzing to see Martinez being forced off injured after trying to injure Nketiah, because we see this time and time again from him where he keeps taking players out around the knees and going in really high with the ball quite a bit away. So it's just, he's a horrible little player. And it's funny, the more I watch him, I did rate him for quite a long time. The more I watch him, the less I think his technical ability is actually that high. And it does make me wonder why Arteta was so keen to get him. So if he was wearing an Arsenal shirt, he'd be sent off every week. But I thought Nketiah, all in all, very, very good. There was that one moment, I think it's in the first half, where Lindelof switches off and it's the long ball, and Nketiah drives forward down the line, ends up getting ahead to it, getting past Lindelof, and he ends up kind of kicking him in the chest. And at that point, Eddie was struggling to get into the game. People were getting very close to him. It was just one of those where he was working hard. He was doing a good job when he had the ball. He was protecting it well, but he wasn't doing anything kind of electric. And I felt that moment helped lift the crowd and lift everyone around him. And it showed like this United team aren't that good. And we were pinned into our own half at this stage, and it just lifted everyone. And that to me was a changing point in Eddie's performance. And I felt that he didn't get many sniffs at goal today, but he just worked his socks off, and he went wide. He ran the channels. He linked play well. He held up play very well, and just the strength of him whenever he's got a player. It used to be if he went around the outside, he could be knocked off the ball. There's no chance of that now. He's got so good at protecting the ball, and these are all things that we've seen. We see Saka do that. We see Martinelli do that, and before Arteta came to Arsenal, we heard about how good he was with Sterling and Sané. Clearly, when players are in wide areas, Arteta's really, really good at coaching them how to protect the ball. And yeah, I thought Nketiah was really good today. But to your next question, should he start next week? I thought Gabriel Jesus was immense when he came on. It was kind of reminded me of what we forget about with Jesus. There was a few dribbles in there. There were some really, really nice touches, the strength, the tenacity, and just running and dribbling into the box, causing that havoc. And it's so, honestly, going with my gut, I would start Jesus in the next game, just because I thought he was so good when he came on today. And I thought he lifted the intensity and lifted our level alongside Fabio Vieira. So I would go with him over Nketiah. But that would be very harsh on Eddie. But it's a ruthless team to be playing in. So yeah. But let's see what Arteta does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because we know we've got the international break and Eddie's going with England, so he might have a standout sort of few games with them. Maybe he might come off the bench and score a goal. That again, it's all about momentum now, isn't it, for certain players? And we'll be keeping a close eye on individuals going away with their respective nations. Okay, swaying away from Eddie Nketiah, I do want to have a conversation about our set pieces, in particular corners.
Yeah.
I don't know how many corners Arsenal had, and this is something that Martinelli did really, really well against Wan-Bissaka. Anytime that he knew he wasn't going to be able to beat him, when he's gone right down to the byline, he would just kick it out for a corner, and he did it so intelligently, so well. So I'm just trying to find how many corners we had, and I don't know whether you know, Adam, the corner stat, but it was a bloody lot.
We had 12 corners.
Right, 12 corners. And how many of those, I mean, aside from that very final one, how many of those were, put into good use? What was really frustrating me was how we were putting them in all different places of that box. There were short corners, there were ones in the back post, there were near post ones, there were ones in the middle of the box. For some reason, none of them come in off. And you give opposition teams corners against us, and for some reason, they managed to score with a very few amount being taken. So what's happening? I mean, last season we were quite good. No, we had a thing going on with these set pieces.
Yeah, last year we kind of had two halves with set pieces. First half of the season really good, second half of the season very poor, and the year before we were fantastic with corners. But I don't know if today we were trying to mix it up too much or what it was, but we hit the first man quite a few times and we just didn't seem to be able to drop the ball in, especially Martinelli's corners. Saka had a few good ones. Rice obviously had that really, really good chance in the first half that he should have scored from, where he headed it over, and that was off a delicious Saka delivery. But yeah, we don't look as dominant from set pieces, but then again, the winner came from a set piece. So yeah, it was a weird day with our set pieces, and that battle down the right of Martinelli and Wan-Bissaka, if that was a year ago, I'd be like, great, another corner, but our deliveries were so poor that every time I was thinking maybe just go at him that bit harder, go at him with that bit more ferocity. It was just, it was frustrating watching our corners, and even the commentary were picking up on it, and how many times has he done that today? Then we had some spells where Ødegaard would come out and they'd play a short corner, but we just didn't seem to be able to get them clicking today. And it was mainly from the delivery aspect. It was that, and there were a few times that Saliba actually stayed back as well. So, yeah, interesting one with the corners today. I don't quite know what was going on, but hopefully that's something that we fix soon, because it's a big part of our game and we've got some big bodies to attack the ball now.
Yeah, well, for a team who's managing to rack up, 12 corners in a game, it's you think about other teams who are efficient at corners, they'll be scoring 2 or 3 from the amount of corners that we had in that game. Okay, let's talk about the final, 20 minutes of the game. United bring on Højlund. They also bring on Maguire as well. So, and it did change the dynamics of the game. I feel like Højlund coming on did add an element of competitiveness and a bit of sort of physicality, especially between him and Gabriel. I mean, they were both all over each other. Ten Hag claiming that Gabriel fouled Højlund in the box and they should have been given a penalty. Arteta, on the other hand, waited a little bit, I think 5-6 minutes before bringing on, made 3 changes. Brought on Jesus, Vieira and Tomiyasu. Do you think those were the right changes to be made at that point in the game?
Yeah, I thought I probably wouldn't have brought Tomiyasu on, but I thought he was really good when he came on. Really, really impressed with his performance. Felt he gave us a bit of solidity. And I didn't think Zinchenko had his best game today. I think he's still coming back from injury. And he definitely wasn't at his kind of like ever-present, 5 yards away, kind of superhuman pass machine best. And so, yeah, when he came off, it was probably the right time in the game. We were starting to increase the intensity and so on. So it was probably the right time. I probably would have made the subs 5 minutes earlier, but ultimately he got it right. And I thought Vieira was really good when he came on. And Jesus, as I've said, just he was the level raiser for me.
Yeah, and one player who didn't come on, well, there were 2, but one in particular, Emile Smith-Rowe, who many were expecting to maybe go out on loan or maybe go out on a permanent move, stays at the club but doesn't appear. Instead, Reece Nelson comes on right at the very end. What does Emile Smith-Rowe need to do in order to get some game time? Because this game I felt like was screaming out for him. Someone who's going to be, running at players, who's going to be, doing something to get the ball into the box. He strikes me as one of those types of players who has that in him. Fresh pair of legs, can spark some kind of magic on the edge of the box.
Yeah, I don't know what he has to do. We obviously talked about him on Thursday on the 15-minute show. I really don't know what Smith Rowe needs to do to get game time. But honestly, if I was Mikel Arteta and it was a flip of the coin today between Arteta and Vieira, I would have put Vieira on given his performance against Fulham last week. So I think it's one of those, we've won the game and Vieira's been one of the big factors in us getting that result. So it's harsh on Smith Rowe. I don't know. I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea what's going on there. And he seems a long way from getting minutes for Arsenal. Maybe against Everton we will see him on the pitch. But the issue is he's played so few minutes for us over the last 18 months that if you're in a high-pressured situation like we were today, can you as a manager really trust him to throw him in? So we're all remembering the kind of the Smith Rowe, what is like close control, pacey, energy raise in, like good finishing, arriving late in the box, all those things that happened within a kind of 6-month period. But the reality is they haven't happened for 18 months. We have no idea really how sharp Smith Rowe is at the minute, what's going on in training, how hard he's working, all those things. And like, that's not to say he's not doing anything like that. It's we genuinely have absolutely no idea about Smith Rowe at this time. And he could be working his socks off, and it could be that Arteta's training him to do a specific role and doesn't want to throw him in and have him doing other things outside that. Or it could just be that he actually doesn't rate him. But right now we do not know. So I have no idea, because I agree with you. I think today felt like the kind of game where he could excel.
Yeah, and especially when, situation happened where Saka misses an absolute sitter. The ball needed to be in the back of the net. There was that moment, wasn't there, where, we're working. Martinelli does excellent, dribbling through 2 United shirts, finds its way over to Ødegaard, puts it into White. White places a lovely ball across the face of goal. Saka makes a contact that just doesn't have any conviction to it, and then Onana somehow saves it. At that moment, are you thinking, we're playing, we're essentially playing either for a draw here or trying to hang on, because it doesn't seem like anything we do is working?
Yeah, there was a point, it was just before United scored, where I was thinking this is going to finish 1 each. And I was getting a bit frustrated because I felt that we had taken the emotion out of the game. We were trying to play in a very mature way and control them and grind them down. And I wanted to see a bit of last year's intensity. And we had just had the Saka miss, and I don't know how Saka missed that. I think if Saka scored that, we would be talking about how good he was, whereas actually it fed into him not having a good Saka game. But yeah, I very much thought this is going to finish 1 each, and then Garnacho runs through, just as I was thinking that, and scores, and I was furious when that went in. I don't know about you, but my gut said he was offside, but then when there seemed to be no flag at all, I was thinking, he's onside, this is 2-1. What were your thoughts on that?
I don't know what was going through my head. At the time, I was screaming my head off. So I was like, it was as if, in Star Wars where Darth Vader tells Luke Skywalker, "I am your father," and he goes, "No." So that was exactly me in delivery. I was like, "No!" Just screaming at the top of my lungs, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand how he was able to run in on goal with so much space. And what really irritated me, and I made a note of this, 5 minutes before, was it 5 minutes before? I think it might have been a couple of minutes before he went on to score. There were 5 minutes to go, and Martinelli, there's a situation where we can pose a counter-attacking threat. Instead, Martinelli decides to totally slow down the tempo of the game and pass the ball back instead of exploiting that situation. United just looked a little bit more eager to get a late goal because they probably know in the back of their head they've played so poorly, yet they're still in the game. And then I'm just pulling up the goal now just to have a look at it and so I can talk through. It's really naive from Arsenal. We kind of just switch off, and I feel like, to be fair to them, they gave it 100 miles an hour throughout pretty much 90 minutes of that game. They gave it their all. They were playing at such a high tempo with so much intensity. Their legs were probably gone during that phase of the game. So it was good play from United. Lovely flick by Højlund to Fernandes. And I guess Garnacho is at the right place at the right time, makes the perfect run. He's running in on goal, and I'm just praying, this doesn't go into the back of the net. Please, somehow. Can Ramsdale do a little bit better? Can he make himself a little bit bigger? I don't know, but it's a good finish. Slots it in.
I don't think it's
goes into the corner.
He's very hesitant to come out, and he stays in his box, and I guess he's trying to make Garnacho make the decision, but he picked exactly the right choice. But the pass from Casemiro was honestly the first thing. Casemiro actually touched the ball a lot today, which shows how many sideways and backwards passes he made. But that pass through was one of the first times I actually noticed him on the pitch. I just thought he was really
Was it Casemiro who made that final ball?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Casemiro played the through ball. Højlund's flick, Casemiro's through ball, and Garnacho winning goal. But I think Ramsdale could have done better. He could have come out faster. He's obviously made a decision to hold and try and give the striker the eyes. It didn't work. But what was interesting, have you seen the replays of Gabriel? He literally stops to pull himself back and stands to try and play the offside. And his movement basically kind of freezes himself and stops running. And that's what's caught him offside. So it was actually a really, really good piece of play from Gabriel that led to the offside. And it was one of those... Ten Hag says that the lines were drawn wrong. But look, if it's offside, it's offside. We all have these moments where you get a frustrating goal where it's just about off. But, you can't argue with it. It's one of those, the lines are there. That's as close as we're ever going to get. And yeah, I think there was a huge sigh of relief when that offside appeared on the screen. I don't know about you, but I suddenly had this sense of relief and thought, right, let's go for it now. Let's kick on and get going and try and up the level.
Yeah, very much edge of the seats kind of thing when the goal got disallowed. And actually, when Reece Nelson came on, that was the moment for me when I was like, right, come on. We know what this time is all about. Yeah, we know what's going to happen now. Very frantic end to the game. There were 8 minutes added on, and I think after 4 of those minutes were played, we were throwing absolutely everything at United on the edge of the box, playing it from one side to the other. Reece Nelson, Tomiyasu, very much involved in... And also, it wouldn't have been Martinelli. It was somebody else on that side. But, they were very much involved in kind of trying to get the ball in the box, play it in behind. And it was Ødegaard's shot, which wins us the corner. When he took that shot, I was like, why? I was screaming in the sky, why?
I didn't see the touch. And then whenever it went for a corner...
I didn't see the touch either. I thought it was just a poor shot.
Yeah, same. So, but yeah, when the corner went in, it was one of those. There's a lot of United fans up in arms that it's a block. My mates just text me saying he's not trying to sound bitter, but Johnny Evans was blocked. And I've been looking for the block. And if you're going to disallow a goal for that, I think it's 6-2. Both players are grappling with each other, and that's two defenders in the box. But I don't know about you, but when Rice controls the ball, I thought he did a really good job because it's too low to head it and too high to chest it. So he can kind of only push it back up with his head to try and get some control on it. And then he seemed to have all this time. And it was everything slowed down, and then he smashes that ball. Obviously the deflection happens, and Onana was having a go at the crowd the whole way through the game, so I was buzzing to see him concede that, because I actually think he should do a lot better with the save.
Yeah, I don't know where this block, supposed block is happening, because Evans he's got the freedom to run and circle himself around Gabriel. I'm just watching it on loop now, just to see where this block happens. There's no necessarily block. I mean, they're both in there, they're both tussling, they both got their hands on each other. Evans, when the ball is being delivered into the box, he has the ability to run backwards. That ball is way too high for anyone to get to. The only person who's going to get to it is Declan Rice, because Declan Rice is the only man there in that position to pick up the ball. And, you know, he says it himself, that ball is far too high. I've literally just paused it kind of a millisecond before he's about to make contact with it. And he, in his post-match interview with Sky, he said that he actually not chests it, but he brings it down with his chin. So that goes to show how high that ball was. So excellent bit of technical play to bring the ball down. And as you said, time just stops. And again, I've just paused it just at the second where he's about to release, and you can see he's loading up to just unleash. And the power of that shot is so well hit that it manages to deflect off Evans, off Onana, and still make its way into the back of the net. And at that moment, you know, I'm guessing you just lost it.
Oh, mental.
Especially being Declan Rice as well, right?
100%. I think it was just, he was so good today. He was so dominant in the middle. But I also felt he was really calming. And the big thing was, I felt that, you know, with Bournemouth and Villa last season, we just had this like piling on, like energy, like non-stop, full throttle. Everyone like supercharged, players getting the crowd up for it and everything. I felt today there was the opposite. They just had this like trust. I was like going mad because I was thinking, like, come on boys, like a bit more energy, a bit more enthusiasm. This is walking pace. And I guess it showed the maturity of the team. We really took the emotion out of that. And then obviously we celebrated. But when it went in, I think because it was Rice and he had such a good game and it was kind of his I'm here moment, that for me was just, I was buzzing. I was like jumping around the room, like just like a big kid like we all are. It is crazy. Like we put all our happiness in the hands of footballers kicking a ball around the pitch that we have absolutely no control of. And when that ball went in, it was just... But then there's always the fear of like the VAR, will it be overturned and everything? So it's like go mad for like 10 seconds and it's like, is it going to be overturned? And then it's like, it was quite clear. But I mean, I've had a look whilst we've been talking of that Johnny Evans block, and I can't see a block that's worthy of pulling play back and stopping a goal. But it's, and again, it's, I said this about the Ben White incident last year. That one still winds me up at Leicester. If those are kind of the decisions that are going to stop goals, the football's going to be ruined by them. And if we had a goal overturned by a decision like that, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I think you're bang on with what you said. He's still got time to run. And I think maybe, he can't turn, but he's not going to win the ball anyway. And I think it's very easy to say, oh, there's a man 10 yards away who was being pulled back. You're in the box with corners. Every player is grappling with each other in some sense. And it's your job as a defender. Johnny Evans is 35 years old. I've been watching him since he was about 17 when he broke into the Northern Ireland side and he was on loan at Royal Antwerp. And he's a strong defender. He's a shrewd defender. If he's being blocked, Johnny Evans is wise enough to be able to shake his man off. And that for me is just, no way is that a foul. It was just a huge moment, and it was funny how quickly every pundit laughed it off as well whenever Ten Hag was saying it was a block. It was like, no, it wasn't, mate. Like, you've lost the game. Just, like, it's
He's
one
such
of those...
a sore loser.
I think I would have more respect for Ten Hag if he wasn't such a bellend. Like, I think it was first game of the season, they had that incident with the Onana where he comes out, clatters his man, and they should have considered a penalty. I think it might have been against Wolves. And
Wolves, yeah.
Then he comes out, and him and Bruno Fernandes are both like, or Onana, and I think Bruno as well, definitely not a pen. Justifies. If he came out that week and said, we got away with one, might have thought, right, fair enough, because that happens in football. You do get some that you're like, we should have. Like today, I thought Saka was a bit lucky because he did have a second nibble at Fernandes whenever he tackled him, and he was rightly booked. But I thought, like, on another day, you might get a bit more for that. But I think, like, Ten Hag, he does himself no favours because he came out and did that and said that after the first game. Then the next week against Spurs, he's like, we should have had a penalty. And it's like, you can't be adamant when you've got away with one, and then the next week be adamant when you haven't got a decision in your favour. So I think we saw it again today, just what a sore loser he is. And he plays horrible football. I just can't stand him, to be honest. He's very quickly becoming the manager in the Prem that I like the least. Like with Jose Mourinho, he wound me up to no end, but I've always had this soft spot for Mourinho in that I hate him, but he's funny and he's antagonistic and he's got all those things that you don't like. But kind of, if he was my manager, I would like it. Whereas Ten Hag, I'm looking at him, I was seeing the stuff United fans say about him, the things he says in interviews, the football he plays, and I'm thinking I wouldn't want him anywhere near Arsenal.
Yeah, he's well out of depth. I think it's clear to see. I've got this one friend, United friend, and we grew up together. We were in primary school together, and he moved to Norway. We recently got back in touch with each other. So any time anything happens between either United or Arsenal, we're always kind of bantering each other, taking the piss out of each other. So I haven't messaged him yet, but I will do. And every time we have this Arteta versus Ten Hag debate, he's fixated. He's absolutely convinced that Erik Ten Hag is a genius somehow. Because he's managed Ajax, he has to be a genius. But, we don't need to worry about it because he's not our manager. And just before we end the podcast, there was another goal to talk about. But at that moment when we scored that second goal, did you think that was it? There's no way that either they're going to come back or anything else is going to happen. We just see this game out.
Yeah, I think what I really liked was, whilst I would have liked more intensity, I thought it was really mature. We took the emotion out of it, and when we celebrated, we really celebrated in the corner. Rice, obviously, full of passion, running into the fans and getting that, like, the love from the Arsenal crowd, the Rice baby and everything. But we settled so fast again. We went straight from that to, like, switch on, back in the game, focus, not letting United do anything. And then that ball comes to Fabio Vieira, and it was reminiscent of Villa last season, where Vieira in the same position, it was Jesus running through instead of Martinelli, and then Jesus absolutely does Dalot. Like he just, like, Dalot had a really good game today. I thought he was excellent, and for Jesus to do him that way at the end of the game, and what a confidence boost that'll be for Jesus as well, because he came on and he had a really big impact on the game. He was just so good all round, and he hasn't scored. He didn't score. Did he score in pre-season? I'm not sure if he did, but maybe he got one. But
I can't remember.
He's obviously been out for a month now, and that injury was such a blow to him. He'll be gutted with that. So to come back, have such a big impact on the game, and then to score as well, I think it's still a difficult chance. It's an inch-perfect ball from Vieira, but he still has to beat a man and then beat Onana, who, aside from Rice's goal, where I think he should have done better, I thought he had a pretty good game today. So that was, like, just phenomenal. But then again, we did the same thing again. We took the emotion away, straight back at it. We headed every ball, we cleared every second ball, and we let United come at us, but we saw it out. And the intensity and the ferocity that I wanted to see, we didn't deliver it. And at the end of the 90, I was really glad that the team stayed with that maturity that I probably, as an irrational fan during the game, didn't want to see. I wanted to see fire and fury, but what we got was maturity and trust in what Arteta wanted them to do. But it also felt like a whirlwind, just phenomenal.
Yeah, such a good end to a game, and we Arsenal fans were being spoiled with these moments. And there were many times we're talking about pre-Arteta years where it's looking quite dead. You can tell we're kind of playing for a draw. It doesn't seem like we're going to score a goal, and you're begging for something magical to happen, and it doesn't end up happening. And Arsenal, for I don't know how we've developed this style of winning, but I hope to see it many more times again this season. I'm just rewatching this goal over and over again, and Jesus is he's so calm and composed in that situation there, to just because it's so easy for him to lose that ball. It's so easy for Dalot to just come sliding in and knock him out or make a really good tackle, but he times it so perfectly. Such a meme-worthy goal that is. It ends Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1, and so we've arrived. It's finally time for good, and bad. So we are going to pick our good moment, and our bad moment. So, Adam, why don't you start us off? This time we'll take it in turn. So you give your good moment, and then I'll give my good moment.
Okay.
I know you're going to end up asking me anyway, so rather than trying to avoid that happening, tell me what your good moment of the game was.
My good moment was Ødegaard's equaliser. The venom of the strike. What's your good moment?
My good moment was Havertz going in on goal and winning that penalty, which wasn't a penalty at the end. But I genuinely thought that was going to be the turning point for Havertz, and he would use that moment to kind of push him on and try and turn a corner from that performance. We didn't actually talk about what it's going to take for Havertz to get himself out of this rut. It's probably a good question to ask, isn't it? What do you think needs to happen in order to get the best out of him? Is it a case? Because here's what I think. I think what needs to happen now is he needs to be taken out of the starting lineup. We need to play him in the games where we know it's going to be a little bit more simpler, a little bit more easier, a little bit more less pressured situation, which is annoying because no game is less pressured. But maybe an opposition further down the league table, or maybe a cup competition, something like that. He just needs to have a good performance, I think.
Yeah, I think Vieira deserves to start in the next game. So it could be... honestly, I think he needs a goal, he needs an assist, something like that, or a moment in a game. Like I said today about Nketiah, had that moment where he chases the ball down. It's a lost cause. He wins it, and it ends up with Lindelof being booked and Arsenal winning a free kick halfway into United's half. Even sometimes, like really, really small moments like that just lift a player. And it's like, it happens all the time. It lifts the crowd. It gets them a bit of belief in, a bit of fire in their belly. And I think that's kind of what Havertz needs, is just a moment that kind of makes him believe again. Because it's funny, I think up until that really sloppy pass, I thought he was quite good in the first half. I know he should have scored that chance, but I thought for the most part he'd had a good game. And then it was a turning point where I felt that after he gave that sloppy pass away, like the strike, he should be scoring that. He should be at least striking the ball and not scuffing it. But there were a couple of moments. There was a really poor touch down the line that went out for a throw-in. There were a couple of other sloppy passes. And I just felt his confidence went even further after he gave that ball away. And yeah, I agree. I think Fabio Vieira has earned the right to play. And in the same way, Havertz probably needs to just be taken out and maybe come on in the last 20 minutes. And also lay down a gauntlet for him to earn his spot. I know he cost 65, 67 million, whatever it was. But actually, in that Arsenal team, if you think Martinelli is a 100 million player, Saka is a 200 million player, Ødegaard's a 150 million player, just because we paid that for Havertz doesn't mean we should be like nailing him as a starter. We've got players worth that money in the team that we've developed into that value. So yeah, I agree with you. Take him out and make him earn his spot for the next game.
Okay. So what is your good moment?
Good. Rice's winner. I don't think I could think of anything else. What about yours?
Yeah, I'll have to go with the same as well. I was going to say Jesus' little cut to the side to let Dalot continue sliding across the pitch. But yeah, I don't think anything beats Rice's goal. And the reason why is because I think we all know, don't we, subconsciously, that he's a West Ham boy. You know, he's always going to... It's the same with Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney was always going to have Celtic on his heart. But we want these players to be Arsenal as well. We want them to be. We want them to be part of the family. So when that goal goes in, and when you see him celebrating with the fans, it makes you feel a certain way. It's that further integration. You know, it makes him feel the that much more Arsenal. That's not to say he's not going to feel like that anyway. But we want him to feel what he feels for West Ham.
Yeah, and I think it's like what I was saying about Havertz with moments. I think Declan Rice has arrived instantly, and I think that was I thought Selhurst Park superb, but tonight was a different game, and that was a game where he had to play in a dominant ball play inside against a low block, whereas half the game at Palace he was defending a lead, and that's what he did at West Ham, which was play a low block. Whereas today, that was a massive, like, statement-like performance, and I agree with kind of really feeling part of the club. It's moments that make players. Like, you can be a superb player, but actually people remember goals, trophies, and those things. They're the things that are kind of etched into history, and we will be seeing that goal in 15 years' time in the same way that we see some of those winners from 2006, for example, when is it Henry gets the winner and so on. Like, those goals will be shared on social media in 15 years' time, and that was a big moment for me with Declan Rice. So I agree with you there.
Perfect. Okay, and finally, your bad moment.
Is it bad or ugly? Are we going bad or ugly?
No, we're going bad. I mean, for a defeat, it would be good, bad, ugly. But
okay,
seeing as we won,
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Saka on Bruno Fernandes because I didn't like seeing that from Saka, and I think if that was the other way around, I'd be calling Bruno all sorts of things because I felt Saka knew what he was doing, and we praise him so much, but I think he steps in his foot and then he has a nibble with the other foot as well in the back of the calf. So I don't like seeing that from Arsenal players, and I think if we're going to call opposition players out for these things, it's only right that we do it. We called out Martinelli last year on the pod when he had that one at Brighton where he kind of backs into his man. And so yeah, I didn't like seeing that from Saka today. But what was yours?
Just before I say what was mine, I felt like Saka was a bit unlucky there, actually. I feel like because he slipped. I know you're saying that he was pulled down. He's purposely caught his man. Yeah.
He's pulled down, but he extends his foot, and then he does have a nibble with the other foot as well. So I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And if you think if that was Bruno, a player we all love to hate, what we'd be saying. So I think we got the free kick, but I thought he was rightfully booked for it.
Okay, so my bad moment of the game. Well, I can't say Havertz because that would be too predictable. So I'll have to pick someone else or something else. It's a strange one because I don't know if there were... and again, I don't want to be the guy... I don't want to paint myself as anti-Havertz, but very little was done wrong aside from Havertz in midfield. I feel like a lot of the control we maintained in midfield. Ødegaard was great. Partey was... Partey? My bad moment is not Partey not being on the pitch. No, Rice was great. Eddie was great. Martinelli was brilliant. Maybe... Do you know what? It's going to shock a few people, but there were a few moments in the game where Saliba gave the ball away and could have been exposed as well on a few occasions where he was overcommitting himself. He's still, I think anyway, one of the best centre-backs, if not the best centre-back in the Premier League. But few bad moments in the game where the ball was given away and he was having to kind of chaotically run after it. So, yeah, that's my bad moment of the game. And so, it's that time of the show again where we must, unfortunately, say goodbye. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's listened up until this point. Thank you very, very much. If you did enjoy this episode, please do make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Let us know what you thought of the show by reaching out to us on Twitter. You can find us over there at Arsenal Therapy. You can also find Adam over there at AdamKeys_. And you can find myself over there at Gunner Since 96. As always, we will be back next week to give you your usual weekly dose of Arsenal Therapy. But if you can't wait until then, make sure to head over to the Arsenal Therapy YouTube channel for the 15-minute show, where we'll be taking you through all the latest bits of Arsenal updates. That's every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. And yes, you guessed it, the show is indeed 15 minutes long. Make sure to also head over to the Arsenal Therapy website too for the blog posts, where we'll be breaking down our thoughts and feelings about the game and so much more. So until then, take care, have a great week, enjoy the international break, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.